Thank you for joining us on the program today. We talk about Zambia and Eswatini relations. How are those bilateral relations affecting the agriculture sector in particular? There's a lot that has been signed. There's been tourism, there's bilateral relations, MOUs being signed, but what are we doing in the agriculture sector? We'll be talking more about that one. And talking about development, what role is research playing in Zambia's development? How much attention is it receiving when it comes to making sure that development agenda is in focus for Zambia? We also get into the issues of the environment. Yesterday was World Environment Day, but how is it affecting sustainable development? Don't forget, we also have our take and innovation. Let's get straight into our first chart. When we talk about research and development in our country, how much attention is being paid to it? That's why today we are going to be having a conversation with an academician, Kelvin Chibomba, and we want to get to understand how much research is going into research for development. How are you?
Fine, thanks, Julian. How are you?
Fine, thank you. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Let's simply define research, first of all. What is research? And here we're talking about it on national scale.
Okay, on a national scale, we can simply say that, this is a process that we conduct maybe by certain sectors that we have as a country, or to a large extent, sometimes these are done by universities. But the main thrust is being methodical, being systematic, so that by the end of the day, they are what we call findings or results. These are supposed to be empirical. Even when we begin to discuss some of these things, everything that we come across with is supposed to be backed by evidence. So this is a process which is very, very fundamental in development. So
how vital is research for a developing country like ours, especially social and economic as well?
Exactly, Judy. This is very, very fundamental. Check. When you go into certain statistics, you find that Africa's contribution towards the global GDP is only at 2.6 or 3%. Just imagine. And we may want to discover, why are we lagging all these years? For example, Zambia hasn't contributed so much. From 1964, okay, now we're independent, but are we truly independent? Mm-hmm. Are we able to manufacture certain goods? The bottom line is that we haven't been able to have the muscle compared to other countries that we find in the West. The idea is that, we need to fully be part of this, a movement where we begin to contribute also. But this has not been the case. And there are so many questions that are supposed to be answered. And for only information, Judy, look at 1964. We had close to about 100 graduates. Mm-hmm. Now we have 1,000. But then, by 1964, we did more things than what we are doing today.
I wanted to ask, if we know where the loophole is, we know what importance of research to the development agenda of a country, and we have the expertise that are coming through from, the academicians. Why then are we not maximizing on research to help us develop?
I want to say that probably there are certain loopholes that we find in these institutions of higher learning. And once there is no support, even the products will not be very, very strong. For example, Judy, my belief or my understanding is that every person who goes through these institutions is supposed to contribute immensely towards the development of each and every country. But this process can only be done when people fundamentally begin to embrace research. Research is so key. People can go to school, get that paper, get that degree, that diploma. If they do not understand the basics and the concepts of research, then we are back at zero.
How should we then fuse research, looking at all the factors that our country has in regards to social and economic development? How do we then fuse in research to make sure that it helps us get to that intended development figures?
Number one, we need a little funding, I think, as institution of higher learning. If we are not provided with the funding, then it will become so difficult, because research, Judy, is it's a process that you need to have some resources. Either economic studies or social studies, society is so dynamic, and these fundamentals that you're supposed to bring together are supposed to, to be studied. And this process, sometimes it's longitudinal, you need a longer periods until you get the findings. So all these processes, they need money. So I want to believe that probably we haven't done so well, Judy, because there hasn't been a lot of funding in these institutions of higher learning. And I want to believe, the regulators like HEA must come on board now and begin to check what the institutions are also doing. Because when you go to science, you discover that research sometimes is done in compounds. Maybe there are 10 students there. That's not correct. We want students to embrace these methods, that when they go to the field, they're able to embrace them and utilize them and come up with empiricism, so that by the end of the day, we are able to get this knowledge and pack it into books to be shared so many people. But currently, Zambia, I think it had been very, very good, because we believe so much in tacit knowledge, where it's just by word of mouth. We need to be explicit, get it, put it on the book, and then you begin to share. And this has been,
With conversations such as this, definitely we will see some change in it. Fingers crossed. We hope so all the same.
I hope so.
I appreciate you coming through. Thank you very much.
All right.
All right. I have been talking to an academician talking about the importance of research in the development agenda, both social and economic. Now, he calls himself the Chief Marketing Officer for Zambia. President Hakainde Hichilema has been in talks with, the King Mswati of Eswatini. There's a lot of MOUs that have been signed, among them to do with tourism, general bilateral relations. But he had a very interesting visit. He went to one of the farms to check how agriculture practices can be shared between the two countries. He has also talked about how it's very important that these two countries don't isolate themselves. Let's get to Paul Shalala, who gives us this report.
President Hakainde Hichilema spent half of the day touring investment projects in the outskirts of Manzini in Eswatini. He visited Stokoto Dairy Farm, which is a 200 million rands investment by the Eswatini Public Service Pensions Fund, Eswatini National Provident Fund, and Old Mucho. Here, he was shown how the farm milks 500 cattle twice a day to produce 153,000 liters of milk per month.
Similar program, because I'm a beef producer myself.
Oh,
yes, so on the beef side, but I like what I hear on the dairy side. We're doing it on the beef side, but we like to do it on the dairy side, because the outgrower will bring out small-scale farmers and raise their incomes so they can get extension support, plus an assured market for what they produce, because they don't have capacity to find customers. So when you have a network, this is the collection points you're talking about.
Yes.
So as you pick the initial exchange of information, I would like us to include the concept of pass-on. Yes. So you do have then an extension service there?
Yes.
When you do the pass-on?
Yes.
Right. So we can look at those issues.
The president has since called for collaboration between the two countries in the livestock sector.
We could do a, exchange visit. So you come to one of our dairies, large and small. Because also on the products, on your deficit in terms of what you import. Part of our agenda is to strengthen our relationships, buying and selling from each other, exchanging genetics, exchanging, the fodder, all of that stuff. Yeah, great.
So
the Stokoto Dairy Farm has employed hundreds of local workers.
And we had a great vision of what we wanted to do. So the first project that we thought about was the dairy. And then we wanted to do blueberries, we wanted to do macadamias. So for now, we're just focusing on the dairy. So it's a 200 million fund. And we are actually sitting on a farm that's 1,400 hectares. There are other farms that we have within the fund. And another 2,000 hectares that we have. We're still thinking of what else we want to do in those properties.
Paul Shalala, ZNBC News in Manzini, Eswatini.
From Manzini, right straight into the studio, Samson Chaziya is an agronomist. We want to explore issues of how we can share some of this knowledge. Does it mean Eswatini has got the same soil as Zambia? Are we maximizing on that? Thank you for coming through to Strictly Business.
Thank you for having me.
All right. So what can Zambia and the Kingdom of Eswatini share agriculture-wise, that is, the possibilities?
I think there's quite a lot of possibilities to share agriculture-wise. Mm-hmm. As you know already, I think we are the leading maize producer in Southern Africa. Mm-hmm. That is non-GM. Okay. And I think there's a lot of research and development that is going into seed development that we can actually export to Eswatini for their growth that side, because I know Eswatini is not is non-GM just like Zambia, but most of the seed is being produced right here in Zambia. So with those relationships, we can actually export a lot more seed. And not only that, I heard the president already signed a memorandum of understanding on exporting maize, yes. Not maize, but the value-added mini meal. So I think that's a good thing for us. Okay. Especially that we're always having a bumper harvest.
When you talk about value addition, it brings me to the issue of maximizing. How do we then maximize to make sure that our agriculture sector here in Zambia is boosted?
I think it also goes to every individual, like the people that want to get into the entrepreneurs, to get into that space. We are producing a lot of products, whether it's vegetables or field crops. We talk about soya and all that stuff. Most of them are being exported as raw materials, but if we can have more entrepreneurs coming into the industry and fill up that gap to have value-added products, instead of just exporting the soybeans, we can export soya chunks or oil or anything that is made of soybeans, and even the maize itself. I think we are so used to just the value adding is maize, is mini meal, but I mean, we always have cornflakes. Why can't we go non-GM cornflakes? Yeah.
All right. Yeah. So which areas should we concentrate on? You've given examples such as, value addition to maize. And when you look at the crop range that we have, there's a lot of talk that has been in regards to diversification. So when we're looking at the areas to concentrate on, and how do you make sure that these bilateral relations speak to the development agenda?
Maize is the easy one because Eswatini is already getting maize from Zambia. And they're also getting what we call maize bran. Mm-hmm. But remember that maize bran is not just going there as going to be fed as maize bran. It's being produced into feed. So if we can ramp up to just add on value to that maize bran and the maize, instead of just exporting maize bran, we should export the feed itself. So we are adding value and we're getting more dollar for our crop that we export.
Value addition, talk of the day right now in Zambia. Thank you so much for coming through.
Thank you.
All right. I have been talking to Samson Chaziya. He is an agronomist, just giving us more issues on what we can do to maximize the relations between Zambia and Eswatini and which areas we should concentrate on. Now, yesterday was World Environment Day. Now, we all know that there is no development of a country that has not spoken about issues of, the environment, sustainable development, climate change, what it's doing, and how this can pan out to be either the make or break for development of a country. William Chilufya is coming from Hivos. I know they are very concerned with the environment, climate change, nutrition, how these work together to make sure that the country's development is something that you can talk about. Thank you for coming through. How are you? Always
a pleasure. I'm well, thanks, Judy.
What were you doing? I'm fine, thank you. What were you doing for Environment Day, or what did you do today?
What I did today in the
to help the environment
was to water the plant trees that I planted yesterday. There were 4 of them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
When you look at the thing that the World Environment Day had, it had to do with One Earth, getting concerned as individuals. Mm-hmm. For you, policy-wise, how are you first working internally as Hivos and externally with your stakeholders, especially that we have a Ministry of Environment, Green Environment? How's that working?
Okay, so internally as Hivos, we've shown concern for the environment by crafting a program called Voices for Just Climate Action. So in terms of the voices, we're talking about how do we build the voices of the local people in the community for them to begin to speak for the environment, and in particular climate change, for them to be involved in co-creating local solutions to do with climate change, as well as doing some innovation. On the side of the government, what we now see is that enabling environment, which has come as a result of the creation of the Ministry of Green Economy and Environment. So that somehow gives us some hope that as Zambia, we are probably getting to another level in terms of addressing issues to do with the environment. Within the environment, there are several issues, but for us, we're really engaged around climate change and climate action.
Okay.
Yeah.
I know your engagements also have to do with the rural parts of Zambia, and I mean, our country is larger when it comes to the rural areas. But in terms of language barrier, how to make sure that, you're telling climate change to my grandmother who's been planting maybe the same crop in the same way, and the nutrition value could reduce. How do you then communicate this? How effective is it? How are these interactions going on?
Judy, it's easy. Yes, communicating what climate change in Nyanja or Soli, in places where we're working from, that might be a challenge, but people are practical about it. People have seen how devastating climate change has been. People can relate to how the situation used to be some 10, 15 years ago and what it is now. And when you begin to discuss that, that difference, people associate it to climate change. So people actually understand it out there. And of course, there are several terminologies that happen at the higher level. But in terms of the grassroots, they know what the problem is.
So how practical are you with it?
Yeah, so what we're doing is that we are talking to the community. Our approach as Hivos is that of co-creating and innovation. And we're trying to empower the local people. We have what we call the labs. It's not the usual scientific lab that you see, but the principle is the same. These are social labs. The principle is where you go and dissect on a problem, you find the problem, and then you try to see, cut it in pieces, try to find out what is really the problem. So the people sit down around that and innovate. So there are serious conversations happening, and people asking questions, what do we do next? They have ideas, where do resources come from? And that's where, for us as Hivos, we're trying to see how do we now connect these grassroots ideas to the facilities that might be there at a national level. And one thing for sure that comes to our mind quickly is the opportunity that government has created within the Constituency Development Fund. So within this, I know a lot of interest around that.
Are most cooperatives, entrepreneurs embracing the green? I know a lot of, corporates are embracing green in most of their strategic plans. But what about the entrepreneurs? Have you interacted with some of them?
Do you know what?
Or even these cooperatives are talking about CDF.
You know what? When you look at CDF, the communities have not yet started demanding for that. But through our interventions, they have started realizing that unlike you to think about desks and hospitals all the time, which are very critical and important, but they also know that, okay, some of these things are being caused by climate change. When people are unhealthy because the agriculture system is failing due to the nutrients that are being depleted as a result of droughts and the like, so that becomes a cause. So people are beginning to realize that we can actually address the cause. And most of the time, they go to climate change. And they are thinking climate change. For an entrepreneur, you know what? Going green is a business.
Yeah.
And it gives more money. So it's about creativity and innovativeness. So the issue is, how do we ensure that this innovativeness actually trickles down to the grassroots? How do you ensure that even when we go there, Judy, to tell them about the importance of trees, trees are important, do not cut them, they'll ask you a question, what are we going to eat our meals from? What are we going to cook? So there's several innovations that have come up in the country. I know colleagues that are now selling solar stoves. You can cook your Chibomba.
Yes.
Cook another Chibomba until you wake up on the solar stove. So there's such innovations. They need to get to the
Interesting, interesting. We're going to follow you one of these days. We see this for ourselves and we bring back a report for Strictly Business.
Yes.
Thank you so much for coming through, William.
Most welcome. Thanks.
All right. Talking about green, the Bank of Zambia wants to promote green finance. Now, in our corporate news, the Bank of Zambia is formulating a comprehensive policy framework to mainstream climate change in the formulation and implementation of the monetary and financial sector policies to promote green finance. The Bank of Zambia Governor Danny Kaliadia says that the policy will also enhance the regulatory framework and to ensure financial services providers are assessed and disclose climate change-related risks in their operations to improve the take-up of green finance. Now, Dr. Kaliadia said this is because the sector's approach to environmental issues through corporate social responsibility is not enough. So they are putting, something on it. Let me take you now to airports and fees being reduced. And we get to the Zambia Airports Corporation that has reduced parking fees for aircrafts between 0 and 5 tons from $5, that is the United States dollars, per hour to 10 United States dollars per day, with the first 6 hours being free. Now, this reduction has been necessitated by the Zambia Airports Corporation Limited in its quest to support growth of small, medium, and private aircraft operators. Our tech and innovation is very exciting all the time. This time we are concentrating on digital solutions and innovations, and this time we want to make sure that you get this right. And to make sure that happens, Schuller Habeenzu, senior software developer, is in studio with me. How are you? Thank you for coming through.
Thank you very much, Judy. It's nice to be here.
Okay, all right. Let's start with talking about, how every business today is adopting digital transformation. I mean, they're all getting on the bandwagon. And also, Infratel has been driving this change as Zambia's premium digital solution provider. So in that, shed more light on digital enablement that Infratel is actually doing.
Okay, thank you very much, Judy. So as you know already, Infratel, we are an infrastructure company. So we deal with infrastructure services such as network, tower co-location services, as well as data center services. And we also have cloud solutions that we do offer. So we provide infrastructure for our customers. But besides just providing this infrastructure, we also provide digital solutions for our customers in order to enable them with on their digital journey. So what we do is we have an in-house development software team, which is known as the Digital Innovation Unit. So they focus on creating digital solutions which fit for these customers, SMEs, as well as large enterprises. So some of the solutions that we actually do craft for these SMEs include mobile applications. We also do software development. So we actually go and get requirements for the customers. Basically, we look at what pain points do they have, what challenges do they have, what do they need to actually automate. Okay. And then our team actually goes in to actually develop that.
So for online payment solutions, how are businesses benefiting from this specifically?
Okay, so in terms of online payment solutions, we, as part of our digital solutions team, we actually developed our own in-house payment gateway, which actually aggregates all the MNO channels, which is Zamtel, MTN, as well as Airtel, and we also have Visa integrations. So through this solution that we've developed, we actually enable SMEs as well as other businesses and companies to basically receive and collect payments online. So we develop online solutions such as e-commerce marketplaces.
Attainment, is it easy?
Well, in terms of attainment, not too much, but basically we are seeing that there's an adoption for digital solutions. So we do want to build all the tools that these companies will actually need so that they just focus on doing the business that they are good at, and we actually manage that digitization process for them on their behalf.
Wow. Yeah. When it comes to ICT innovations, the digital transformation, It's always interesting where this is going. I hope when we call you again, you're going to be able to break down some jargon for us.
Okay, no problem. I'm sure I'll be able to
All right.
actually get into
In
that.
terms of what we're looking into, what should you, someone who joined this conversation halfway, I'll let you close the show for me with the takeaway points.
Okay, so basically the takeaway is as we go into this digital society, Infratel basically is your partner because we have invested in basically a digital innovation unit that is basically going to build out different solutions. So all you just need to do as a business is come with an idea, come with a problem, and we have a team full of basically experts in different fields that will be able to craft a solution for you, and you'll be able to either sell it or improve your efficiencies.
All right. Thank you very much.
You're most welcome.
Appreciate it.
Right, bye-bye.